Happiness Challenge. Congratulations for making it this far. Yay, and tuning in. In case you haven't realized, you're able to catch up with this 90-day happiness challenge. And whenever you come across this video, just go ahead and perform the exercise, okay? Just go ahead and take some time. Usually these take less than an hour, or even sometimes less than half an hour to do. But it's nice to just be very comfortable and very rewarding to yourself, right? So take as much time as you need, but if you're just tuning in now, you can always start now. Hopefully you get some stuff done before the end of the 30-day, because that is when we are going to be drawing our first prize for anybody who has completed all 30 days. You get to be in the drawing for a session with me. So give you guys some Palo Santo. I'm just clearing my space. And focusing on you guys too. Clearing for you. There you go. Love Palo Santo. So, today is really exciting. I love this technique. I should utilize it more often, even just being how effective it is. And it's tapping. So, what this translates to is the emotional EFT tapping is the emotional feelings and then tapping. And so what we're doing is taking stuck energy from the body and we're moving it out. And we're also redefining how the brain has an association with a negative experience that we've had. And what I mean by this is we can just choose any experience that we've had and how it modifies how you act in life. So it gives you a behavioral change or a perceptual change of the world around you. And maybe that something isn't for your greatest and highest good, and you would wish to release it, which is wonderful. So the bad part about those experiences is that they become ingrained in our brain, and our amygdala, amongst other parts of our brain, help to wire us so that we avoid those situations, right? It primes us for that fight, flight, or freeze scenario. But what if we could rewrite those scenarios and actually eliminate them completely, as in even forget an entire association that we used to have? Maybe we have certain fears, such as maybe fear of social situations, fear of making friends, fear of money, fear of success, fear of our body image, okay? Fear of, what else could we include in that? There's a myriad of things, right? Just almost anything. Fear of depression, whatever it would be. So it's the fear of people's opinions, even. Fear of winning, fear of losing, anything of that nature. Anything that would cause us to have a negative behavioral change in our life that doesn't serve our greatest and highest good, right? And the reason why tapping becomes effective is because it utilizes the really old studied, like thousands of years old studied, energy meridians of the body and how they interact with the nerves. So when we're pressing on these spaces, and it's actually called tapping for a reason, you're sending a signal through your nerve endings to parts of your brain. And you're actually helping to calm it down. So when we enter into a state of distress, we often get into the space of oh, I don't like this, and it's really agitating, right? That's your emotional response. It's kind of amazing that what we think about, we bring about. So a lot of times when we have an association with something, it becomes ingrained. And when we experience a situation again, or we think about it again, the same chemical pathways are triggered in our brain and cause us to relive the same emotions, right? So the first time you've experienced this, was it helpful to you, or did it actually cause an impact that is disruptive in your life, right? So that's the first thing we have to actually figure out. Why? What's the situation that we want to start reversing? We start reversing that programming for. So much like, how do I say this? The process of doing this, like I was saying, is simply just stimulating nerve endings at certain points of the body, which stimulates the brain, and it causes a calming effect, okay? And the way that this kind of works is, so we have our situation, and let's just say this is inside the brain, And when we think of something, it starts activating, and it activates in a certain way. And so this could be like distress. So it activates distress. As we're experiencing this distress, when we send a calming signal to this area of the brain, it stops going crazy. Yet we're still thinking of that situation. It calms it down, right? And so what ends up happening is that your brain gets the experience of having a non-dysregulated state with that emotional experience that you had previously. And so you end up rewriting the neural pathways that go to trigger the activation of whatever it would be. And if those neural pathways are generally set up in the amygdala, or maybe it's in the reward parts of your brain or the executive parts of your brain, these areas, they don't store memory as the same way as, how should I say, as the same way as other parts of your brain. So it's not completely in the recalled space. It's more of an emotional response, okay? It's more of the primitive part of the brain. So when we think of these spaces, it comes up a little bit more, what's the word I could use? It's elementary in a way. So other parts of our brain that are actually giving us all these other memories are still intact, and we're just reassociating with those, and we're disconnecting the negative connections that cause disruption. So once we calm down this craziness in the brain, it actually can cease to have a connection to the amygdala or any of those other spaces that would cause us to have a negative or a non-beneficial behavior, right? So this is pretty powerful in understanding that we could change. Neuroplasticity has already determined that the old understanding of our brain being like placid and not being able to transform or grow, like when we get to an adult stage, is obviously false. Anytime that we think that we have to operate a certain way, oftentimes that's a story we're telling ourselves that is false. It might be based on a teeny bit of truth, based on life experiences, and perhaps physical parameters of your own experience, of your own being, such as one truth, maybe, I want to be an opera singer, but I have damaged vocal cords, right? That would obviously be a story that is true because of my vocal cords. But if I just say I can't be an opera singer because I'm afraid or I haven't practiced, those things are just stories that I use to hold me back. Those parts of our thinking are what can change. So, and some other evidence of this, and it's pretty cool. There's some TED Talks out there. There's myriads of studies on EFT tapping, and what they show, I'm going to kind of go verbatim from what I was able to write down. Excuse me. Super powerful. So in studying, and they did a lot of scientific studies, a lot of blind, controls and all these things. They did measurements with MRI machines and other chemical analyses, as well as genetic analyses, and they discovered that 1 hour of tapping, 1 hour of tapping, will change the phenotypic response, or the way that a gene interacts in our body or activates in our body. And there's 72 of these genes that can be changed or modified just with tapping. So it's pretty powerful to understand that, wow, that I have a lot of ability to modify my physical phenotypic response of the universe around me just by tapping on myself. Pretty amazing, right? The other cool thing that I found out is that by tapping, and this is 1 hour of tapping, you can reduce cortisol levels in your body by 24%. In normal, to try and do that, let's say it would be cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, that only goes down by 14%. And this is within values of significance. So this is a statistically significant result. This cannot be, this is verified because of the sample size and because of the way that the experiment is done. It's been able to be solid enough to understand that there's a 10% difference of effectiveness. The other interesting thing about doing some tapping is that the permanent effects of this, or the long-lasting effects for a year out, actually are sustained. And what they noticed in studies is that doing 6 hours, let me see, is that the right one? Yes, so a couple of the other statistics is 6 hours of tapping versus 18 sessions, I believe it is, yes, resulted in the reduction of a diagnosis and actual symptoms of PTSD. So 6 hours as opposed to of tapping as opposed to 18 sessions of cognitive behavioral therapy. And the lasting effect a year later was still present. That's pretty amazing. This also comes in the effect of, let's see, they did some tapping tests with test anxiety studies, and they showed that 2 hours of tapping was equivalent to 5 sessions of cognitive behavioral therapy within that one parameter. Pretty amazing, right? Let's see. For this long-lasting effect that they were talking about, it did say that doing 8 weeks, and it's just 2 hours a week of tapping, so 8 weeks, 2 months, easy peasy, and then within each week, 2 hours of tapping, resulted in an entire year of the symptoms not reoccurring. And in some cases, it was so profound that when asking the subject, what was your original issue, they don't even recall. That is because it has been disconnected from their brain completely. They don't even have the memory for it. And then maybe just by, of course, during the subject, they actually have written down what it was they came in for and reminding them, and they might go, oh, wow, yeah, I did have that a long time ago. I remember when I used to overeat or I used to have this certain habit. But they didn't after an entire year. Very, very powerful. So what else can I say from my notes? The reason why we're incorporating this is because this is actually a somatic technique. We've been doing somatics for the last six days or so, and that is just the bridge from the mind to the body. Okay, so we're bridging the idea that we are separate from the mind and the body using physical movement and mindfulness. And so this is a way of doing that that is extremely effective. So that one's done. Now, how does this happen and what does it look like? So super simple. All it is literally just tapping like this. This is an example. Here's one spot. This is one tapping spot, and I'm going to go in a sequence so you can see the actual sequence of tapping. So I'm going to be tapping here like this. And you want to use the 4 fingers as much as you can. So tapping like this, and I'm just tapping on these nerve endings right here on the hand, and you could do this on both hands. Right? So you're just tapping. Literally, I'm just tapping, putting a little bit of pressure. I'm not like gouging myself or anything of that nature. And then we're going to go to the top of the head. You can do 2 hands if you want to. Boop, 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 boop. Do, 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 do. And you can think of where is like in line with the ears and just drawing it straight up, okay? Just like that. And then you're going to go at the eyebrow point, and you can just use 2 fingers and a little bit spread. Okay, you can see I have a small spread a little bit. This is this next place right here. So we're tapping there. And we're going to tap at the edge of the eye where you have that bone, right? Right here. Dun, dun, dun. You do this. And then we're going to go to under the eye, or excuse me, under the nose. Like so from here, we're going to go under the nose, like this. Do-do-do. Then we're going to go under the chin, like this. Do-do-do. And we're going to go to the collarbone. So this is just below the collarbone, like right here. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And then the last point is just under the arm, and it's kind of just, hopefully you can see, it's going to be about here. It's not in the armpit, it's below, next to the ribs, and usually it's the space where it's super sensitive, so as you're tapping, you might actually notice there's a little nerve twinge right there. It kind of hurts a teeny bit, but it's not really hurt. It's just like, ooh, that's sensitive. So you might notice that, and that's tapping, okay? Those are the areas of the body we tap on. So again, it was the hand, the head, the eyebrow, under the eye, under the nose, under the chin, or on the chin, right below the collarbones, and then under the arm. Okay, we can do both sides. Perfect. And when we're doing this tapping, We're actively actually thinking about what we need to release, what we need to change, and etc. And we're going to go ahead and bring that up, bring up the situation into our space, into our memory, and we are going to feel it. Now, I'm not asking you to relive the situation so that we become super scared or whatever, but the reason why it's good to remember this is because sometimes trauma how do I say this? The trauma is stored in parts of the brain that are not really connected to speech centers, and so the memory doesn't have the ability to actually be talked about, which is why this is so effective for PTSD. So because of that, most areas when you're experiencing actual PTSD, if you do an MRI scan, they light up in an area of the brain in which you don't have the ability to really create effective vocabulary for. You might get to that space after a bit of cognitive behavioral therapy or talking about it, but when you're in those emotional states, you're in fight, flight, or freeze, right? So you're activating your amygdala. So if we're just going to feel into it, wonderful. Okay, I don't want you to kind of like relive and have the trauma of it, but we're going to bring it to the forefront of our understanding so that we feel the emotions. And then we have this recorded, so we don't have to think of new words or written down. We don't have to think of new words. We're going to go ahead and use the first. Back up. Once we feel it, we want to estimate the amount of suffering that we're in based on an arbitrary scale, and it's for everybody's individual decision on how to rate that. It goes from 0 to 10. 10 being extreme, extreme, extreme. 0 being I'm not affected whatsoever. Generally, you want to take an emotion or event or whatever that scales up high all the way down to about a 2 or 3 when you're doing this tapping, okay? Once we have the idea of what we're doing, we're going to bring up the phrase, even though I have this, and we're going to insert whatever it would be, even though I have a fear of public speaking, even though I have a fear of friendship, even though I have a fear of tests, even though I have a fear of loud noises, even though I have a fear of bombs, even though I have a fear of monetary scarcity, even though I have a fear of success, whatever it would be, you're going to bring that up, okay? Even though I have a fear, even though I have this blank fear, I totally love and accept myself. Even though I have this affliction, I totally love and accept myself. And we are going to get real with that. Generate the emotion of love in that moment. Even though I have this, I love myself. Whether we can get to the space of believing it or not will come, but we want to bring up those emotions of courage and of conviction when we say that. So the more conviction you have in this, and that can be a process too, just a gradual process, the more effective it is. And as we actually perform this, our conviction can become stronger because we're repeating it and we're activating parts of our brain that want us to be in the moment and for real. If we have an issue with this, continue to practice it until you get to the space of realness, okay? Then we're going to perform the tapping and we're going to say this phrase 3 times out loud during all of our tapping, okay? So it would look like this, and I'm going to do... This is a hard one. Just to come up on the moment. I will say, gosh, a fear. That's a really hard one for me right now. I can't come up with a fear that's up in the levels of a 6, 7, or 8, or a 9 or a 10 for me. Okay, I got one. Growing up, I grew up in Puget Sound area up in Washington, and one of the things that still kind of creeps me out today is when you look overboard if you're on a ship in Puget Sound, and it's, orcas are great. You can see certain whales and other wildlife, but when you look over and you're in Puget Sound, you see a lot of jellyfish. So for me, swimming in the ocean immediately triggers my where are the jellyfish going on? It's not that I'm scared to be in the ocean. It's scared that I'm going to be in the habitat of the jellyfish. I don't want to experience that, right? Part of it is I don't want to get stung. Part of it is I don't want to disrupt them or hurt them. So there's that. So I am going to say I'm a fear of swimming with jellyfish. Super weird. But we're going to go with that one. And this fear is something so high that I probably would not get in water that had jellyfish in it. And we're probably talking on a scale of 0 to 10, I'm going to label this at about an 8. Okay, at an 8. I probably could get in the water, but that takes a lot of ignoring the fear, right, and really going for it. And also kind of stupidity, in my opinion, because I don't want to jump into jellyfish and come out with stings all over me, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start tapping here and say, even though I am afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I am afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I am afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I am afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. And the emotions in me are moving right now, I can tell. Excuse me. Even though I am afraid of jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I am afraid of jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I am afraid of jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid of jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid of jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid of jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid of jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid of jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid of jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Do it more times, no big deal. Even though I'm afraid of jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid of jellyfish, I love and accept myself. And right now I'm actually thinking of being in the water with jellyfish. So I got the emotions going. Even though I'm afraid of swimming with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Do it one more time. Even though I'm afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid, there it is. Even though I'm afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Even though I am afraid to swim with jellyfish, I love and accept myself. Whew. Whew. So, a little 2-minute exercise. I went the full bore and said it aloud. Make sure you do say it aloud. You don't always have to say, even though this, and then I love and accept myself. I did it the whole way through because I feel like it's a little bit more effective. You could just do this part. Say, even though I'm afraid of blah, 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 I love and accept myself. And then you could just say, I'm afraid to swim with jellyfish, right? You could just do it that way. I'm afraid to swim with I'm afraid to swim with jellyfish, I'm afraid to swim with jellyfish. And because I'm feeling that feeling, it still is effective. You don't have to do the whole sentence. But I like doing it. Gives it 2 minutes instead of more like 30 seconds or so. Now, I cognitively, I'm imagining myself right now looking over a boat and there's jellyfish down there. And that is so funny. The immediate thing that I imagined myself doing was putting my hand in the water and trying to touch the jellyfish. That blows my mind right now. I have never had that feeling, and that's amazing to feel that. So in the moment, actual healing just taking place right now. So your assignment now is to do the same thing. Hopefully you don't have something so silly as being afraid of swimming with jellyfish, but that's, I guess, a healthy fear, or a healthy respect to happen. But choose something that is big for you, and maybe this is just like, oh, I'm really annoyed at my friend. That could even be it, right? Whatever it is, go ahead and do your tapping exercise full the way through and share this video. Use the hashtag 90-Day Happiness Challenge. Use tag me in that post as well, Matthew Embrey-McClain Shamanic Happiness Coach, and then write about your description of your experience about what your fear was doing the tapping and what you felt afterwards. What was your initial scale of suffering? So mine, I said, was about an 8, and now I'm going to say that it's at about a 4 or a 5. If I do this again, it'll probably go lower, but I'm already smiling and I can't even believe, like, I'm picturing myself like with my feet in the water going beep, 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 and having jellyfish around it. That's amazing. So, list afterwards what your scale is, and if you need to do it again, and describe like what you would feel. Maybe you do get another vision, like I just got, like a description of what I would like to do or explore. What else can I say? I think that's everything. That's all of my notes and everything. You guys are amazing. Reach out to me if you need support. Like and share the video so that everybody who could benefit from this type of technique has it at their hands, okay? Maybe just tag some people. Tag 5 people or whatever. Tapping is a technique that anybody can use. It's just really beneficial. I'm just kind of blown away right now. My thoughts are just like, whoa, this is amazing. For just being in this moment. Usually I do this in a meditative state, and I don't have this much reaction, but I guess that was a pretty good underlying response, like an amygdala response. So anyway, everybody out there, happy Thanksgiving. Please, show gratitude to your friends, your family, reach out, play some games, have some fun. I know that right now we're in quarantine or we're asking not to gather too much, so make the best of it. Zoom a friend, whatever it would be, but just stay awesome, stay on your course, and with light and love, I say namaste.